Hello everyone, welcome to Naresh IT Technologies. This is Krishna. We are continuing discussion on Java 8 new features. In last session we have discussed what are the different features given and what is the object behind giving all new features in Java 8 version. In this session we will be learning the first feature of Java 8, that is default method. Okay, can you recollect what are the different objectives of Java 8 new feature? So I told you around 6 to 7 objectives are there. First objective is solving the limitation of interface. What is the limitation of interface? What is the problem with the interface? Let us try to understand. Then what is default method? Okay, why default method, and real-time examples of default method, and different points we are going to learn. Around 13 points including OCJP bits also I am going to discuss, including interview written test questions, everything. Default method related every point we are trying to learn. What are the different points in default method? Let us see first. Default method is also called defender method or virtual extension method. Okay. So in the default method we are learning as usual our syllabus story, what, why, how, when, right? Similar. What is default method? Why default method? Real-time examples of default method, syntax to create a default method, following by invoking and executing default method. So these are the 5 basic important points, and here real-time examples of default method is also very important. You must find some real-time examples. So these are the first 5 basic important points. Then following by, now after learning the first basic points, this default method based, there are several interview questions are coming in your interview room in written test exam, technical round, and also project manager round. Okay, of course the project manager round question is nothing but real time examples of default method, you can tell. In written test exam we are getting several questions. Not only that, Java 8 version certification exam, if you wanted to write, default method is also having much weightage. So what are the different questions we are having here, we are trying to understand. Okay, right. So what are the questions we have? Very important question. What are the allowed modifiers to default method? Okay, whenever you are creating method we have to know what are the methods available. Next, default methods versus regular concrete method. Default method is a kind of concrete method. What is the difference between default method and concrete method, we should learn. And the next, rules in overriding default method in implementation class. Once you write default method in interface, you have to override that method in subclass. So while overriding, what are the rules you have to follow? Next, rules in overriding default method in subinterface. Once you write interface, we can write subinterface also. If you want to take the default method into your subinterface and further you want to override, what are the different rules you have to follow, you must also know it. And then next, how to force a subclass to implement default method. Default method implementation in subclass is optional because it is a kind of concrete method I told. But then how can I make it forcing subclass to implement? For that I have to follow some technique. What is the technique to force subclass to implement default method? Problem with the default method in multiple inheritance. Once the default method is introduced, multiple inheritance problem is again coming back and its solution. Okay, what is the problem and how to provide the solution to that problem? While providing multiple inheritance solution, we come across super keyword usage. So super.m1 meaning is what? Foo.super.m1 meaning is what? Foo is nothing but a kind of interface name. Okay, interface name dot super.m1 directly super.m1. What is the difference between these two statements also we should know it. And 8th point, after default method came, then people are started thinking, will interface with the default method equal to abstract class? Are there any differences? There are several differences are there. So what are the different differences are there between interface with the default method and abstract class? Complete list we are trying to find out. Okay, so these are the different interview questions you can expect in your written test exam and OCJP exam. So this is the basic idea on what we are learning in default method. Around 5 plus 9, around 14 points we are trying to learn in this particular topic. Okay, I hope you got an idea what we are going to discuss. Now let us start first point. What is default method? Why default method? Okay, first can you please recollect why Java 8 new features are given? Java 8 new features are introduced to fulfill several objectives. Among them, the first objective is solving interface problem. right? Solving interface problem. Interface is having one problem, or you can say one limitation. What is that limitation? Please look at here. I have created one interface called with the name example. Inside this interface example, I have declared one method with the name M1. Can you tell me this M1 method is what method? Concrete method or abstract method? It is abstract method. It doesn't have implementation body. It is abstract method. Okay, even if I don't write abstract keyword, no problem. Compiler software will add that abstract method. So abstract void M1, it is an abstract method. Once I create with one abstract method or multiple abstract methods, and further when I create subclass or implementation class from this interface, the rule is all abstract methods of this interface must implement in implementation class. What is the rule? Repeat once again. Once I create interface, from that interface if I create implementation class or subclass, all abstract methods of this interface must implement in this implementation class, otherwise compiler software will throw error, this method is not implementing in subclass. So tell me, here the sample class we got compile time error saying that M1 method is not overridden in sample class and not overridden in example class, one error you will get. Are you following my point? So tell me, what is the limitation of the interface? Interface contain all abstract methods must implement in a subclass. If you want to ignore some of the methods implementation, not possible. Compulsory must implement, otherwise compiler software will throw error. This is the basic idea. Okay. Then now I wanted to introduce project development time getting problems with this limitation compiler level rule. I have developed already this interface example and I have given this interface to my other team members who are implementing this interface. Then they have a subclass written and they have written subclass. From the subclass this method is implemented. Public void M1 of open bracket, some logic they have written. This subclass is ready. Tell me, M1 method I have implemented. After implementing M1 method, this class has compiled successfully, and then further we can call this M1 method execute successfully, project completed, project handover to customer. Are you following? After project handover to customer started using the project. Oh, days are going on happily. After some days going on, around 6 months or 1 year completed, then customer got some new requirements from the market. According to changes happening in the market, now customer got new requirements. Those new requirements has to be added in the project na. Then what happened? Customer coming back to software company and inform to software company, these are the new requirements I need. Can you please add in my project? If you want to add in the project, first of all, the requirement methods should declare in interface. Are you following? After adding this interface, then those methods has to be implemented in subclass. Are you getting my point? Then now try to observe the problem here is, once one interface with operations declarations are released in the market, there are so many implementation programmers will be there. There are so many third party people are there implementing. For example, to understand that, I wanted to write something like this. I have a class called sample implementing this interface with a method public void M1 method. Some logic has added here. Now I am taking another subclass from here, class, let us say test. Okay, implements. In place of test I am writing XYZ. Okay, let us say another subclass called class XYZ which implements the same interface example. And tell me, how many subclasses are there? 2 subclasses. How many implementation classes are there? 2 subclasses. Both the subclasses must implement the method called what? M1. With this logic. Try to observe. M1 method implemented logic of M1 method of example class M1 method, sample own logic. XYZ class implementing example class M1 method with its own logic. Days are going on. Suddenly, according to requirement, now new method required to add it in this interface. How can I add it? Tell me. Abstract void M2 of semicolon. The moment you added abstract method in this interface, then this interface forcing the subclasses to implement this M2 method. Na? when interface is forcing subclasses to implement M2 method, yeah, sample class wanted to implement, but XYZ class don't want to implement. Repeating once again, once I add a method inside interface, sample class wanted to implement M2 method, no problem, but XYZ class programmer don't want to implement that method. Possibility there or not there, think. Simple point, once again I am repeating. Once I added new abstract method in existed interface, then this method implementation in subclasses optional or mandatory. It is mandatory. If a subclass is not implementing, compiler software will throw error. This is the limitation of interface. What is the limitation? Can you repeat? Once I develop one interface with some methods, and then further I have developed so many subclasses or implementation classes from this interface. Then in future I required enhance this functionality, then for that I added some more methods inside interface. Interface accept only abstract methods. I created one abstract method according to the new functionality. Then subclasses has to implement this new method in all places. This is where the problem started coming. Okay, Sun Micro System has started thinking about this problem solution. That is where the topic called what? Default method came into picture. I hope you understand what am I talking. So repeat once again, why default method came into picture. Default method concept came into picture for solving the interface limitation. That is for adding, default method came into picture for adding more methods to the interface without breaking or without disturbing already available implemented classes. I want to add one method inside interface, and that method implementation should not force to the subclass. Without forcing the subclass, I would like to add some more new methods inside interface. This is the requirement of introduction to default method. Can I repeat once again? So why default method concept came into picture? Let us try to understand first. So default method concept came into picture for adding more functionality methods in interface without disturbing or breaking implementation classes functionality. This is the basic idea. I hope you understand. Tell me, what methods implementation is optional to subclasses? What methods overriding or implementation is optional? Concrete method or abstract methods? Concrete method. Concrete method implementation is optional. Abstract method implementation is mandatory, otherwise compiler throw error. Just now we learned. Then now what is the new requirement? I want to add one method in the interface without disturbing or without forcing subclasses to implement this method. Then what is the solution, sir? What method I have to add? Concrete method or abstract method? Concrete method I have to add. Look at here. If interface supports, got my point? If interface supports adding M2 method as concrete method, adding M2 method as concrete method, will you get compile time error in the subclasses? No, because concrete method in the interface or in superclass implementing in subclass is optional. So Sun Micro System come up with an idea. If we allow interface to add, if I allow programmers to add concrete methods inside interface, then now subclasses are free from implementing this method. So this is the basic idea got to the Sun Micro System, and they have introduced concrete methods adding to interface. So from Java 8 version onwards, we can add method with the implementation body in interface. Up to Java 7 version, we can add only abstract methods. From Java 8 version onwards, we can add implementation body method also. Okay. Then now the doubt here, if I add implementation logic, is abstract allowed or not allowed? Not allowed. Yeah, compiler throw error. Abstract means no body, body means not abstract. Then I want to tell to compiler software, this M2 method has a regular body, but it is not the regular concrete method. It has some special features are there. Okay, so to tell that special features method, now they have introduced a special keyword called what here? Default. Okay, they have added some special keyword here. What is the keyword? Default keyword. That's it. This is the story about default method. So tell me now, a default method concept came into picture for what purpose? For adding the new methods in the interface without forcing the subclasses to implement them. So default method is a kind of what? Concrete method. Are you getting my point? Where this default method is allowed? Can I write in regular class? Oh no, only we are allowed to write inside interface. So this is the basic idea on, basic picture on default method. I hope you got some idea, right? So now let me try to summarize all these points with some questions. What are the questions we discussed? Look at here. What is a default method and why default method? Okay, how to create a default method, syntax to create a default method. 3 points I have covered here. What is default method? Why default method? Syntax to create default method. 3 points over. Let us try to see the notes part of these 3 points. Look at here the board. First point, tell me what is default method. Can you try to tell? Default method allowed inside where? Interface. So default method is a interface method that contains what? Implementation body. So that is the first point you have to tell. If any interviewer asks the question what is default method, answer is what? Default method is an interface method that has implementation body. Simple point. Okay. Second point, how can I create a default method? If anybody asks, you say inside interface create a method with implementation body and with the keyword default. That is the second point. Third point, overriding or implementing default method in subclasses, mandatory or optional? Optional. We no need to override. Okay. Then why default method concept is introduced? Look at here. I have written several points. Try to copy carefully. Why default method? Point number 1. Default method concept is given for adding new functionality to an existing interface without breaking or disturbing existing implementation classes. What does it mean? Using default method feature, we can add new methods in interface by not forcing subclasses to implement those new methods. By not forcing the subclasses, this is important. By not forcing the subclasses, we can add new methods. So from Java 8 onwards, we can say with the default method feature, implementation classes programmers are what? Free from implementing new methods. They can continue, means implementation class programmers can continue with old implementations and by reusing the new functionality given in default methods in interface. Okay, now sometime maybe in future subclass or implementation programmers want implement, they want to provide their own functionality in subclass. Possible or not? Yes, that's the point. In future, implementation class programmers can provide their own implementation according to their requirement. Okay, so this is the basic idea on what is default method, why default method. So what the purpose of default method? I hope you got a very good idea. Okay, now can you tell me, after you understand this small story, okay, I would like to take one real time example for you clearly getting idea. Tell me, I have in India we have a concept called SIM. Of course everywhere it is there, but I want to take India scenario. In India first we have a SIM concept. Okay, SIM is having a basic 2 operations. The first time introduced the SIM with a 2 basic idea, 2 operations. What is that? Call and SMS. That is only the purpose. Then later on this SIM and mobile combination, they want to add some more functionality. First come with what? SIM with the 2 operations, call and SMS. Then next we got what? SIM 2G, SIM 3G, SIM 4G. Latest is SIM 4G. Now tell me, SIM is contain only 2 operations. Later now we got one more called what? SIM 2G. Now SIM 2G came for adding more functionality, internet support from mobile. SIM 3G came to support video calling. SIM 4G came to support fast internet, fast browsing. Are you following? Then first basic functionality, call and SMS. Then in this SIM, by implementing this SIM, now we got service providers, Airtel, Vodafone. Assume SIM interface SIM. Now to implement this interface SIM, now service providers are there. What are they? Class Airtel, class Vodafone, let us say. Then now tell me, whenever Airtel and Vodafone people are there in the market, already implementation is done. Their SIMs are there in the market, customers bought and using in the mobile. Suddenly SIM 2G functionality came, SIM 3G functionality came, SIM 4G functionality came. Then where these functionality based methods should declare? Yes, according to the rules, existing interface. In existing interface, we have to create what the method? Internet access, video call, fast internet. 3 operation methods we have to declare. Try to think. If in the SIM interface 3 methods are declared, then we got problems to the subclasses, na? Airtel businessman, Vodafone businessman, they have to add these 3 methods also in their SIM. Otherwise, now the software will not work, they will fail. How this problem can be solved? Try to think. According to Java 8 version, the problem can be solved by using default method, na? Right? So we can create that video call method and next fast internet access method. All these methods we can add inside the SIM interface by using default concept. Without disturbing subclasses, we can add a new feature. So this is why this concept is came. You may ask me question, sir, SIM, Airtel, Vodafone, all these SIM concepts are available before Java 8 version itself. Then that time how they have handled, okay, how they have handled. So that we are trying to understand next video. So in this video we got only summary points on why default interface concept came, what is default method, how to create default method. These 3 concepts I have added. Now in the next video we are trying to understand what are the different real-time examples. For example, you take SIM, you take vehicle, you take so many other examples, business examples are there. For example, you take bank account. In bank account initially we have deposit and withdraw operations, but later online transaction, so many new functionality should add. How they have added in the business. Before Java 8, how they have added. From Java 8 onwards, how they have added. These points we have to understand. Okay, so that points we are trying to learn in the next session. Okay, so in the next session we will discuss real-time examples, following by how to call and execute default method. We are going to understand in the system also. I will show you all these examples. Thank you for watching this video. In the next session we will discuss next points, real-time examples. See you in the next session. Subscribe to Naresh IT channel for more videos. Thank you.